Okay, this is part two of the teaching on the why of election. Okay, so no introduction here. We're going to just keep on going. So we stopped at the last one, Matthew 25. We're going to start here at Luke chapter 15. We're going to look at verses 11 and 12. And this is the story of the prodigal son. We're not going to cover the whole story. A lot of stuff here. We're just going to study the stuff that we want, that we're bringing out as far as purpose. Okay, 11 and 12. And a certain man had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the estate that falls to me. And he divided the wealth between them. And we know at the story that he went out and squandered all that. Learned an important lesson. The other brother stayed. And so anyway, so when he learns his lesson and comes back, so it's like us. We've been in the world. Now God is calling us back. Okay, so what happens when He calls us back? Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Um, so verse 20 through 22. So he got up and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion for him and ran and embraced him and kissed him. Well, if you want a picture of a sinner coming to God, this is the picture right here. Okay? God's not going, I wonder what this guy wants. No, he's been waiting. He's been calling, he's been waiting. And when this happens, boom, he's on top of it. Okay? And the son said, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. The father just said, yeah, forget about that. He says, we got things to do. So the father said to the slaves, quickly bring out the best robe and put it on him, put a ring on his finger, a ring on his hand, and sandals on his feet. Okay, so what is the father saying right here in his actions? Okay, well, the sandals on his feet right away means he's not a slave. Slaves did not wear any sandals because you didn't want them running very far when nobody was watching. If they had sandals, they'd just run away. But if they were barefoot, they couldn't go very far. I mean, it's just a fact of life, and that's what was going on back then. They all heard that. What? He's not coming back because he was going to ask his father if he could be a slave, and God said, No, no, we'll have none of that. We'll have none of that. You're going to come back as a son. Okay? He gave him a robe and a ring, the best robe and a ring. Well, the ring is a sign of authority. He could do business under the family name if he has that ring. So he could go down and say, "Okay, I want a whole flock of sheep, maybe 100." Okay, and the guy says, "You got no money." He says, "I got the ring." He says, "Oh, you got the ring. Okay, we'll write an agreement and you'll stamp it with your ring." Okay, and then you got it. So he's got credit, family credit. He can go out and do business. Okay, and he's got the royal robe. Everybody knows who he is. He gets respect. So he's got respect. He's got authority. He's got resources. That's what God gave him as soon as he came back. And what he said, the son of mine was dead and has come to life again. Okay, and that's the story that we get in our conversion. It says it's not that we made a decision. No, God's found somebody that was a walking dead, and He made him alive again. We saw that when we were talking about what God does to save us. So He finds us dead, and He makes us alive. Okay, so now we're going to Luke 16, 9 and 10. You guys enjoying this? I sure am. I love this topic more than anything else because nobody's ever taught this. Not a single soul has ever taught this. I'm the only one. So when I do this, I know I'm giving you guys enlightenment that you're not getting anywhere else. So 9 and 10. I say to you, make friends for yourselves by means of the mammon of unrighteousness. What is he talking about? Mammon of unrighteousness? That's money. That's filthy lucre. That's another word for that. It's the money that we use is not righteous money. Okay, God made gold and silver to be righteous money, and that's not what we're using. Okay, that when it fails, and is our money going to fail? Oh yes, because it's unrighteous. Okay, they may receive you into eternal dwellings. Oh, okay, and that's not the word eternal. That's an age of dwellings. So if you're using your money right, you're going to be building friendships and relationships that extend way beyond this age and into the next age. And there's going to be people, because you've been kind to them, they're going to be happy to be kind to you. So everything does not stop in this age. This is preparation. Remember I said that? This is preparation for the age to come. Okay. And so verse 10 is the principle. And we'll see this principle over and over again. He who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much. Faithfulness is a learning thing, to learn faithfulness. And we learn it little. We learn by being a paper boy. Then we learn it by being a good worker at a fast food joint. Yeah, and then we learn more by being our own business owner. Then we learn more by being an elected official. Then we learn more by stepping up and being something in God's church. Okay, so so this is what we're in right now. This is our school. This is our learning time, and your children are, and your grandchildren are, and so make sure they learn their lessons. And so he who is unrighteous in very little thing is unrighteous also in much. My dad told me, he says, well, you know, if you're dealing with a guy and he lies about this, he's going to lie about something else. Why? Because lying is what he does. Oh, okay. So once he's lied to you once, just expect when you need to believe him on something, he's going to lie to you. And so don't ever believe a thing he says. Okay, okay, and that's played out very well for me. I found that to be exactly the truth. If you're unrighteous in the words that come out of your mouth, they're always going to be unrighteous, no matter what you say. Okay, so if therefore you have not been faithful in the use of unrighteous mammon, who will entrust to you true riches? Well, there's true riches coming. That's why we're giving money now, and that's no good. But there's good stuff is coming, and that's what we're aiming for. Okay. So and if you have not been faithful in the use of what is another's, who will give you that which is your own? I mean, you can really own it. Well, that's coming. Okay. So that's part of what God is pointing to. So we're in a school right now. That's what Jesus is saying. He knows that. I'm going to give you little responsibilities, and then you're going to earn the right to move up the ladder. Okay, Luke chapter 16. Well, now we're into Luke chapter 19. Luke chapter 19, we're going to start at verse 12. A certain nobleman went to a distant country to receive a kingdom for himself and then return. And he called 10 of his slaves and gave them 10 minas and said to them, do business with this until I come back. Well, this is a pretty common thing for one of his stories. Well, that's because this story represents what's really going to happen. Jesus is going to go away, and at a certain time, he's coming back. And what's happening in the meantime, okay? And so that's what we're in right now. So we need to open our ears and pay attention. So we're going to jump over one of the parts. There's more to be learned in each one of these, but we're going to jump over that. 15. And it came about that when he returned after receiving the kingdom, he ordered that these slaves to whom he had given the money be called to him in order that he might know what business they had done. Okay, so this I think I didn't study this out, but it's probably this is the Bema Seat judgment where we have to lay account to Jesus for the things that we've done. Okay, all of us have been given these minas. Okay, and so this is a little story to illustrate how it's going to go. Okay, so I don't want to lose my place. 16 and 17. And the first appeared saying, Master, your mina has made 10 minas more. And he said, well done, good slave, because you have been faithful in a very little thing. Be in authority over 10 cities. Now, why did he say 10 cities? Because that's what he's talking about. Who's going to be authority over these cities? And so that's what our little faith tests are all about. Okay, and some of us are going to pass all those tests and do very well, and then we're going to be put in charge of 10 cities worth of something. Okay, and so he didn't just make this up. This is part of the big plan. Being in charge of cities, and we're going to see that even more highly illustrated. Okay, is part of the plan. 18, 19. And the second one came and said, your mina master has made 5 minas. And he said to him also, and you are to be over 5 cities. Okay, so we have one guy that blows it like the other guy in the other story, and the same exact thing happens. Okay, but he has exposed. See, they're going to be in charge of many things. Now he's up the game. You're going to be actually in charge of cities. Okay, so maybe not everything in the city, but maybe the aircraft rules, or watching over the airport, or freeway maintenance, or freeway construction, or something like that for a whole city. Okay, so that's a big job. It's a huge job. Well, that's what Jesus is looking forward to. He's not looking forward to little bitty stuff. Okay, so that was Luke 19. So now we're going to look at some negative things are happening. Luke 22. Sometimes the best teaching is a negative example teaching. So we're going to see that. Luke 22. starting in verse 24. Okay. There arose a dispute among them as to which of them was regarded to be the greatest. Okay. So that's not a good thing, but it's a teaching moment. So Jesus is going to teach them. Okay. So these guys think they're hot stuff. 24 to 36. And he said to them, he said, I want you to look around, okay? And I want you to look at the kings of the Gentiles. Now, why is he asking to look at the kings of the Gentiles? Why don't we just look at the guy down the street? You know, the guy that's raising a bunch of pigs, or the guy that's fixing a bunch of chariots. Why are you looking at that? Because that's not what we're getting trained for. Okay, look at the kings. The kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who have authority over them are also called benefactors. So there's kings, and that's usually a king is over a city. Well, there's bigger players than that, and they're called benefactors. Okay, that new world order thing, you know, those kind of people. Okay, so so think about them. Think about them. Okay, what are they like? Well, we know what they're like. Okay, but but what they're like, not so with you. Let him who is the greatest among you become as the youngest, and the leader as the servant. They come across with a huge attitude, and they lord it over you. And then maybe even in your church, there's people that lord it over you. There's people who not have learned this principle. Okay, God wants people who are in authority not to lord it over people. No, you've been given this. This is an entrusting thing for the benefit of the people, not for your benefit. The people in power always turn it around. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's not said in the Bible, but it's demonstrated over and over and over again. Okay, so we'll now read verse 29 and 30. So so I give you a principle. You guys are arguing about who's greatest. Baloney on all that. Okay. So what I say, the greatest among you will be as the youngest. Okay, the one of you who's not presuming everything. He says, and the leader as the servant. Okay, he's introducing servant leadership, and it's going to come out more and more in other stories. So 29:30, just as my Father has granted me a kingdom. Okay, that's a slam dunk. Everybody knows that God has given him a kingdom, and his kingdom is the entire world. Okay, so he says, okay, God, my Father has granted me a kingdom. I'm going to grant you that you and eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and then you will sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Whoa. These ragtag guys, fishermen, whatever other trades that were there, these guys are just guys that work with their hands. And Jesus said, you look at the benefactors, you look at Herod, you look at Pilate, you think about the Caesars. You've never seen one of them, but you heard about them. You think about the armies of the Parthians. You think about all these great guys that you know about. You think about Pharaoh. You know all these people you know about of greatness. He said, they ain't nothing compared to what I'm going to be and compared to what you're going to be. And so you need to change your attitude and you quit acting like them. Okay, that's in plain, simple English. Okay, so says those people are wrong and you're not going to be like that. You are not going to be like that. Okay, so he said that pretty plain and in their face. Okay, okay, we're done with that. Now we're jumping to Matthew 24. Okay, so we've already done something in Matthew 25. We're going to go to Matthew 24. Matthew 24 starting 15. What was this? That's 24:15. We'll see. We'll get there. No, I did something wrong here because that's not the right place. I hate it when I do this and it messes up the flow. Okay, I don't know what I wrote down here. That's 23. Oh, here we are. Here we are. Who then is the faithful? And this is Matthew 24. 45. I didn't see my writing with pencil. It was very tight. Who then is the faithful and sensible slave whom his master put in charge of his household to give them their food at the proper time? Now, a servant giving other servants food is going back to Peter and Peter's ministry. I want you to feed my sheep. Okay, so this is a spiritual leader. This is what he's talking about. Feed my sheep. Okay, spiritual leader. Blessed is that slave when his master finds so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. So the guys that take this seriously, they get put really high in charge of the possessions, in charge of God's possessions. Okay, and what's his main, most beloved possession? His children. Okay. So just so you got that in your head. But if that evil slave says in his heart, my master's not coming for a long time. Okay, remember who this is. This is the spiritual leader. And he begins to beat his fellow slaves and to eat and drink with the drunkards. Okay, we've seen that in history. We've seen that over and over and over in history. I see it in some churches around me today. I mean, big churches. And, some guy called Falls from Grace. Why? He's been treating all his people like garbage, and he's been partying with the drunkards. Okay? That's what it says right here. I didn't make all this up. And Jesus knew it was coming. Why? Because spiritual power creates spiritual problems. Okay? The master of that slave will come on some day when he does not expect him, and at that hour which he does not know, and shall cut him into pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. I've always wondered about that. How do you cut somebody up in pieces and then give them another place? Maybe you got to cut them up in pieces and then you put them back together. Okay, whatever. It's going to happen just like he says, and it's going to do the job it's supposed to do. Okay, so some people are going to be faithful even inside the church. Okay, so even inside the church. Okay, so that's a negative example and should teach us something really big right there. So Matthew 20, a couple more lessons. Matthew 20, 25 to 28. The glare in here is terrible. 25 to 28. Okay, this is again about the lording it over. Okay. Jesus called them and said to himself, and called them to himself, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. So the lording over, exercising authority over, and I'm up here and you're down there. I mean, that's what you come to understand when you're around these kind of rulers. I'm up here, you're down there, and you're nothing, and I'm everything. Okay, so that's the attitude that government and authority is in our age right now. He says, not so among you. Why is he saying that? Because they're going to be in exactly those same places. Exactly those same places where it's being lorded over them. They're going to step up to that place. So what are they going to do when they're in that place? When you are in the place of being the man in charge. You're the man. What are you going to do? Well, Jesus is going to tell you right now. Not so among you, but whoever wishes to become great shall be your servant. And so when you show up, he says, hey, I'm here to serve you guys. He says, I'm not here to lord it over you. I don't want your stuff. I don't want to mess up your life. I'm here to do those things for you that you can't do for yourself. That's what I'm here for. I don't want to be humble about the whole thing to begin with. That's what it is. So you aren't going to sit up there and say, okay, you do this, you do that, and take those people over there and march them over there and steal a bunch of stuff from those people and build me a big thing over there and come over there. No, it's not about me. It ain't about me. It's to make their life better. When I'm in that place, I'm going to go to that village or I'm going to go to that town. And he says, I'm here to make your life better. So what do I got to do? Okay. So, okay. And whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. That's an attitude. He says, I'm here to serve you people. Whatever it takes. I mean, if I got to work day and night for the next 2 years and get nothing but hard work, that's what I'm going to do, because that's what it's going to take to get you guys where you need to be. But that's the attitude. Jesus is teaching an attitude. So when you're part of my administration, you're not going to be sitting up there in some thing, as I need 6 guys to take me on a trip. And so you guys are going to row the boat and I want to go water skiing. That kind of stuff ain't going to happen even a little bit. No, sirree, Bob. So I'm training you right now. That stuff ain't going to happen. Okay. And so just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. Look at me. Look at how I came. And when I come back, it's going to be the same way. and to give his life a ransom for many. He said, I got 30 some years, I worked my tail off that 30 some years to make other people's lives better. And guess what? When you're in charge, that's what I expect. I'm looking for an administration that'll come out and be public servants and serve the people that need to be served. Well, see, he's making plans. That's what he's making plans for, and nobody's really catching on. Okay, Matthew 20, verses 20 and 21. Roll back. Okay. The mother of the sons of Zebedee came to him with her sons, bowing down, making a request. He said to her, "What is it you want?" And she said to him, "Command that in your kingdom these two sons of mine may sit, one on your right hand and one on your left." Now, that's a pretty big thing. Now, why is she saying stuff like that? Because she's been paying attention. Jesus is talking about taking over. She didn't catch on to the timing, but she knows he's going to take over, okay? And when he takes over, she wants her boys to sit at certain places and do that, okay? Why? She's mom. She's proud of the boys, okay? Well, she maybe not look at them with realism, okay? Okay, and Jesus knows what he calls them sons of thunder, and that was like a joke, and everybody laughed, okay? Okay, so you got to be careful about those boys. You know, they're a little bit, they're strung a little bit tight, is what he said. Okay, so so she puts this out there. Okay, so Jesus is going to respond in a very righteous way. Jesus answered and said, "You do not know what you're asking for, lady." He says, "Are you?" And he turns and looks at the boys. He said, "Are you able to drink the cup that I'm about to drink?" And he's talking about being a martyr. He's talking about being persecuted and beat to an inch of his life and then killed. Okay. And they looked and said, "Yeah, we're able," because they're not paying attention. They haven't listened to a thing that Jesus said, about suffering and dying. Okay. And then he says, "Okay." He says, "Okay, guys, you think this is playtime? Well, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to experience that." And I don't. And James, he died a terrible death. And John, they tried to boil him to death and put him on an island. He experienced some really crummy stuff. Okay. But then he's going to say, "I want you to listen carefully. My cup you shall drink, because you ask for it." Okay. And you think you're hot stuff, and we'll see how you play out on this. But to sit on my right hand and my left hand, that's not mine to give. Okay? But it is for those for whom it's been prepared by my Father. So back in the day, before the foundation of earth, God was filling out this whole administration thing. I mean, he just think of his foresight. He knew all the stuff. He knew about technology. He knew all that stuff. Okay, so he's writing down the things, and he goes, "Okay, I need someone Jesus right, someone left." Okay, he wrote names on those blanks. Okay, and Jesus says, I am not free to say right now who those are, but it's not you guys, and I know that. Okay, you guys don't measure up. And there's been guys. Just think about it. Those places, in order to get there, you got to go through persecution. You got to go through martyrdom. That's what's going to happen to you in order to get there. You're going to stand up for what's right, and you're going to be mashed down, pushed down, beat down, and you're going to keep clawing your way to the top until they kill you. And that's how you're going to get to the place you are. And some of us see people, know about people. That's how they live their lives, and we're not maybe willing to do that. Guess what? We're not going to be as high in the administration as they are because of the price they paid for what they understood to be right and wrong. Okay, and that's what Jesus is saying. You want to get to the very upper places, those people have been through hell to get to sitting next to me. They've been through hell on earth. And then they're going to sit up there. And guess what? They are not going to unload on people. They are not. Okay. They know. They know. They fought and died so that you don't have to. And so that's the kind of people Jesus is recruiting. Okay. And I pray that everyone who hears these videos say, Don, I've been floating on this thing, and Jesus has laid out a big thing, and I haven't picked it up, and so I'm gonna get serious about this whole thing. Okay, so that's what this is all about. Okay, so you and I are on that list, by the way. Maybe not up there next to Jesus, right and left, but we're on that list, and we got things to go through, and we got things to do. Okay, so get back to our thing. Okay, now. Okay. I'm not going to be able to go through everything I've got here, so I'm going to do one little thing right here. So in Hebrews chapter 2, there's a statement, okay? And I've known about this a long time. And this is a quote from Psalm chapter 8. We're going to go back and forth just a little bit, okay? And I'm not going to be able to cover the whole thing, but I want to give you guys a picture, okay? So, starting in verse 6 of Hebrews chapter 2. What is man that you remember him? Okay, he's talking about people. This guy's, whoever's writing the psalm, I mean, it might be David. He says, look around and says, what's this about people? What is it? And he's starting to get this idea. Or the Son of Man, that you are concerned about him. Okay? And when he says man and Son of Man, he's not picking out Jesus especially, but that's one of the names that Jesus has, is Son of Man. So this guy's being prophetic without even knowing it, okay? Because his prophecy is going to come to pass. You have made him for a little while lower than the angels, and you have crowned him with glory and honor, and you've appointed him over the works of his hands. Now, many of you guys actually know this verse, okay? And that he's this man. He's looking around at people, and he says, "Therefore, you know, I'm perceiving this by your Spirit, Father. I'm perceiving. They're a little while lower than the angels." Okay. Well, the guy who wrote this right here was looking at the Septuagint. Okay. So he's looking at a translation of the Hebrew. Well, what does the Hebrew actually say? Well, we're going to go back to Psalm chapter 8. What is man that you take thought of him, and the Son of Man that you care for him? Okay. Yet you have made him a little lower than God. What? It says right here, over here in the New Testament, it says made him a little lower than the angels. And this one here, he says, you've made him a little lower than God. Why did it say that? Because this should be little g God. So in the Old Testament, there's God is called several things, but there at some point he reveals to us that this word Elohim also stands for the heavenly council members who turn out to be the idols that people worship in other nations. That's we learned about that, and so that word Elohim includes that part of God's administration. Ah, Don, yeah. So he had an administration to run heaven, and he let it oversee the earth. And so when they divided out the nations, each nation got an Elohim to run that nation. And in Psalm 82 and Psalm 89, God was not happy about how they did it. He was upset to the max. Okay? And so these guys are history in God's mind. Why? He's training up men. There it says right here. They are for now a little while lower than the Elohim. But what does that mean? That means on another day, they're going to be higher than the Elohim. And so God's personal counsel for running heaven, human beings are going to step into that council. That's what he just said right there. Human beings are going to step into that council that run the whole Marianne. Okay? Sitting at the right hand and left and around the circle around Jesus. People are going to be over. That's what it says in 1 Corinthians. It says, don't you know you're going to judge the world? Haven't you been paying attention? Don't you know you're going to even judge the angels? Why? Why are you going to judge things that are up above you? Because you're going to be elevated to a place where you do that. Okay? And that's why we need to take this Christian faith so seriously, because it has a serious, serious calling. And that serious calling, maybe you've not been prepared for that properly. And that's why I'm really endorsing this idea of discipleship, being discipled by very personally in a way, understanding the Word of God, so that you can gain the faith that you need, and you can gain the understanding and theology that you need in order to step into that place when God calls you up. So we're going to look at more of that stuff in another set of lessons, maybe even the next one. I haven't decided yet. So God bless you all, and may God bless you in your ponderings on the things we just discussed. In Jesus' name.